Hello, everyone. Meeting called to order for the December 16th, 2020 Plan Commission meeting. Roll call, please.
Harms,
Here.
Joseph,
Here.
Lalonde,
Here.
Moore,
Here.
Peterson,
Here.
and Goslin.
Here.
We have 6 total.
Great. Any items to be removed, added, or changed?
No items.
Great, then we've got the minutes from the Plan Commission meeting of November 4th, 2020. Any comments on those minutes?
Yeah, I had a question on them. On the beginning where Jenny notes, please note, it says the actions taken by the committee / city council. So I wondered why that was worded like that.
Which
Jenny?
item on the agenda or minutes was this?
It's on the beginning, please note.
First
where Jenny-
paragraph.
Right. It says the actions taken, they're intended to make an official record of the actions taken by the committee, city council. Doesn't say plan commission.
Let's see. Oh, that is something that the former city administrator, Bill McGrath, had on all the minutes. It's on every single.
Oh, and I never noticed it before.
Yeah, that was back from Bill McGrath, but we could always change that to commission for the plan commission.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that,
Sure,
I think
unless there was a reason to do it as committee.
it would make more sense, I think, to make it the plan commission. The
Yes,
actions taken by the plan commission. I don't know if anybody agrees with that. but-
Makes sense to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Never saw that before.
Great, any other comments on the minutes? No, then if not, I'll need a motion to accept the minutes for the November 4th, 2020 Plan Commission meeting.
So moved. Arms.
Seconded. Lalonde.
Great, I think we've got a motion and a second. And I think we're taking roll call for all of this. So Jenny,
Harms,
Yes.
Joseph,
Aye.
Lalonde,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
and Goslin.
aye.
Motion carried 6-0.
Okay, great. Then next item up on the agenda is a public hearing for the Lost Woods Animal Sanctuary conditional use permit. Not sure, Drew, do you have anything for us on this before we open the public hearing?
I'll defer to Joel on this one. This is his project.
Okay, great. Then I need a motion to open the public hearing.
Okay, also
Peterson.
move.
Go ahead.
Also move.
Second. Peterson, second.
Joseph and Peterson. And then I think we'll need a roll call. So Jenny?
Sorry, my computer's a little slow, so I was trying to unmute myself. Joseph,
Aye.
Lalonde,
Yes.
Moore. Yes. Peterson,
Yes.
Goslin,
Aye.
and Harms.
Yes.
Motion carried, 0.
Great, and then I believe we're not really going to have any discussion on this, that we're going to leave the public hearing open, and that we would like this to be continued to January 20th, 2021 meeting of the Plan Commission. So if
Correct.
that's correct, then we just need a motion to continue the meeting.
Okay,
I'm
also
sorry.
So
move.
moved, Lalonde.
Or
So
second.
moved, Lalonde.
Great, we've got a motion and a second. Roll call.
Joseph?
Actually, it was Lalonde, I think, that got the motion. That,
Oh, I heard you first.
okay, I'll say aye.
Okay, so Lalonde. Okay. Lalonde?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Goslin?
Aye.
And Harms?
Yes.
Motion carried, 6-0.
Great. Then next item up on the agenda is the public hearing for amendments to the zoning code for cannabis dispensaries and related uses. Anything on that before we open the public hearing?
I know there's not
Okay,
sure.
then just need a motion to open the public hearing for the amendments to the text of the zoning code for cannabis dispensaries and related uses.
Moore makes the motion.
Open the public hearing.
Okay, I heard
Okay.
Moore.
Second, Harms.
Thank you.
Great, motion and a second. Roll call.
Moore?
Yes.
Peterson?
Sorry, yes.
Goslin?
Aye.
Harms?
Yes.
Joseph?
Aye.
And Lalonde?
Yes.
Okay, great. The
Motion
public
carried,
hearing
6-0.
is open, and I'm assuming staff has a presentation for us.
Yes, I will present for staff. And thanks, Chairman Goslin, for introducing this. There's a public hearing tonight for the discussion of cannabis dispensaries and some other modifications to our cannabis business establishment requirements. This is based on coming after the fact that Batavia City Council did place on the referendum November 3rd. Consider whether
No, you should probably mute yourself. I think there's some background noise.
I don't know if anyone else is having a hard time hearing Drew.
Yeah, if
Yeah, it
anybody's,
sounds
if
like a
anybody,
helicopter going over.
please, if you're not speaking, please mute yourself because there's some background noise going on somebody's.
I went ahead and muted a panelist where the noise was coming from.
thought it was on your script. Okay, I'll start over. But tonight's public hearing is based on or coming after the fact that the City Council did place on the November 3rd election ballot an advisory referendum as to whether the City of Batavia should allow the sale of recreational use cannabis through with certain restrictions. The result of that referendum was a 63% vote in favor of that question and 36.95% against that particular resolution. And 81.49% of the registered voters in Batavia did participate in that question. So that there, with it being a presidential election, that number obviously was participation was quite high. After the results came in on November 10th, the committee of the whole did direct staff to begin preparing for a public hearing regarding cannabis dispensaries, recreational cannabis dispensaries. And the idea was that we would then have those requirements in place for prior to the next round of state license applications, which has not been determined when that will happen, but we're expecting in 2021 that there would be a new slate of applications. The committee of the whole spoke basically pretty broadly about the where they thought a use could go. They weren't providing any direction on that matter. They wanted the Plan Commission to consider that issue. They didn't feel there was a need to provide a specific number or limitation on dispensaries, and they did express their thought that it should be a conditional use wherever it would be ultimately permitted. There was not specific direction, but there was a stated preference during their discussion for some form of providing buffering from certain uses, but they did request that the Plan Commission explore that topic in greater detail. Essentially, the only motion that they made on that was to require the state minimum requirements. As I also noted in the memo, Chief Ewell did brief the committee of the whole last night. He did provide a memo that I did attach a link to in the report that included some of his observations after speaking with a number of other speaking with some dispensaries and municipalities that have experience with dispensaries over the past year. There was some observations from that memo were that the dispensaries tend to be destination businesses. There is increased foot traffic to other businesses nearby. There was a discouragement of downtown locations in the report, or in its memo, basically citing concerns from the dispensaries about adequacy of parking. He did observe that the parking operations do tend to be very busy early on with the use, and that he also noted that pickups, where certain dispensaries have been, during the COVID situation, have been using appointment-based pickup with pre-purchase or pre-selection online. And he did note his recommendation was to prohibit the consumption on premises, which is what is included in the draft memo, or changes, as well as a preference for commercial spaces, or general commercial activity over industrial, but he did say that was could be considered as a backup, and preference, as I said before, about not having the use in the downtown area. We did include several chapters that aren't being proposed to be changed, at least with the staff draft, and that is in order to allow the commission to consider whether these uses should be in some of the other districts, or whether some additional regulation might be proposed or considered with the public hearing process. As I noted in the memo, we did establish some requirements already with when the state initiated the medical dispensary allowances back in 2013. So we do have some items in the code already about that. And then earlier this year, when we did implement a conditional use for certain production uses related to cannabis, those also have been added to the code earlier this year. So one of the things, so among the other things that we would want to add or consider adding, those have been added to the proposed draft, and those include parking requirements as well as where we are proposing to add the use. I did outline some of the requirements of the State Act as to where or what things a business can't do and can do. There is a hours of operation between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. And as I go through the report, I'll talk about our proposed or our current number for that. And as well as there was a FAQ included or a link to the FAQ that the Illinois Municipal League prepared that had some explanation of these uses, related items that are kind of might be helpful for both the Plan Commission and City Council as they consider these uses, and just might answer other questions that the committee or council or commission might have. In terms of where the current draft proposes this use, the draft proposes that for commercial districts that a recreational dispensary be a conditional use in just the general commercial district. Staff observed that there might be some incompatibilities with the neighborhood commercial and community commercial district in terms of limited parking availability on off-street parking and the closer proximity to those districts have to residential districts. As I mentioned before, we're not proposing to include these in the downtown mixed use district, but that is another district that the commission may want to consider. To correct one item from the memo there, I said due to the state location requirements, that is actually due to the proposed or the at least sample or draft setback requirements, where those kind of limit the downtown area as a rule already when those are applied. For the mixed use district, we do not recommend including it in the as a use there. However, the Plan Commission can also consider that district. And then with employment districts, we are proposing not to have a standalone dispensary use. We don't currently allow medical there. So we would only recommend including it with when associated with a grower, a craft grower, or a cultivation center, and then only as a conditional use. And as we noted in the memo, the current section of regulations in that chapter at 2605, we would recommend moving that to 4.515. In terms of parking, we did include a survey of a couple of other municipalities within the area, and there was some variation as to what type of parking requirements they allow or require. Some, like Aurora, just defer to the base district requirements or the basic use requirements of the use. So industrial type activity would have a warehouse or production requirement. Dispensaries would have retail requirement. And basically St. Charles had a higher requirement for parking for recreational versus medical. With the recreational cannabis, we are recommending a rate of 1 per 250. We've included a rate of parking of 1 to 300 for medical. And then for industrial portions of these uses, with which we don't really have, or we did not put parking regulations previously in for grower or infuser or some of those other transportation uses. So we did recommend basically mirroring our requirements for parking in those type of uses. However, we did add language that allows the Plan Commission to approve or require a greater parking requirement. That same language also appears for the dispensaries too. In terms of the buffer requirements, the only locational requirement that the state has is that a dispensary be 1,500 feet away from another dispensary. So there's also in the State Act a prohibition against advertising, like billboard advertising for cannabis uses within 1,000 feet of a number of uses like school grounds, playgrounds, things of that sort. There's a list of, I believe, 7 or 8 items, and that is a 1,000-foot buffer. Based on the uses that we are proposing as a staff, we did provide 2 maps where those districts would be outside of those buffers. And as a reminder, with the industrial, though, that would only be with associated with a cultivation or grow center use. The map on the screen right now, that is a 500-foot buffer from those uses. And just to get that on screen again. And then the second map in yellow applied a 1,000-foot buffer to those certain those certain activities and created that second map, just so you have an idea. Now, the commission could recommend removing some of those uses if you don't feel it's necessary to have a buffer from those. You can add additional uses. The state statute allows us some flexibility there to as to what other zoning time, place, manner type regulations we are allowed to put in place. I did also include in the staff memo a number of other variations on what other municipalities have done for setbacks, and they range quite a bit. There's only certain uses like schools that some apply these to. Some do use the more comprehensive list and or some variation thereof, and the setbacks range from 150 feet to 750 feet. It's really up to the municipality to kind of figure out what the best fit is for each. So that kind of covers those particular setbacks. I did note a couple other ways that through our review of other municipalities that cities have chosen to regulate these uses. One was experience. So a couple of municipalities required having some level of background either in the state of Illinois or in other states in terms of doing recreational or medical sales. So that's one particular option. As I mentioned earlier, hours of operation is an option for regulation. The current draft includes what we put in place for medical dispensaries, which is an hours of operation from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. This varied with the municipalities that we surveyed, and the chief's report mentioned the fact that putting heavy limitations on hours might create more demand in a more limited period. So that was something that he included in his observations. The other item was number. As I mentioned, the city council didn't really feel that this was something we needed to really apply at the local level, that basically the scarcity of licenses and the market demands or market drivers of this type of activity would probably limit how many actually come into place in Batavia. But we did note a couple other municipalities have put limitations. That includes Geneva with 1 recreational and 1 medical. St. Charles allowed 1 on each side of this town. So 1 east side, 1 west side. Aurora is allowing 4, and 2 of those were limited or reserved, I should say, for social equity applicants. And that's covered under the state act in terms of who's eligible for social equity applications. No location within the city of Batavia falls under the designated impact area that the state created. But as I noted in the report, there's a couple other methods that the state uses to determine who would be qualified for that particular provision. So those are the overview of basically some of the potential regulations. The Plan Commission can, of course, ask us for additional information as to what municipalities have done, additional buffers, review of buffers that you would like us to review. So we, of course, with the hearing tonight, would take testimony, and the Plan Commission does not necessarily have to make a recommendation if you would like additional information presented to you. So the staff recommendation tonight is to open and conduct the hearing. After receiving testimony, you can either continue the hearing to allow for additional testimony or additional information to consider. If you feel you can make a recommendation to the city council based on the information at the conclusion of the hearing, if it concludes tonight, you can certainly make a recommendation of proposed amendments. And so that's basically the recommendation for the night. And we leave it from there, go from there.
Okay, great. Thanks, Drew. A lot of moving parts to this one. It is a public hearing. Were there any initial thoughts or comments before we open it up? Amy?
Hold on. Yeah, you know, in your, can you hear me now?
Yes.
In your report, you said that the anticipated next round of state licenses is 2021. Do we have any idea like what time of year that will be? I know you said the date isn't available. Is that some first half, second half? Do we have any idea?
The state really hasn't said specifically. Now with this past year, some of the licenses were delayed, particularly for the craft grower application window, along with transportation and the infusers, the uses we reviewed earlier in the year. Those, because of COVID, were delayed several months, and I don't know that the state has actually taken action on those yet. So it would probably, if I had to estimate, the state of Illinois hasn't said, but I would assume it's probably not going to be the early part of the year. It probably would be, probably earliest I would just, this is just a guess on my part, would probably be like second quarter of next year. So probably that application window might have a conclusion. But it could be as soon as the first quarter that they could start taking the application.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Anyone else with any preliminary questions? I did have one question, and more because I'm a little ignorant on the topic, but we're treating cannabis craft grower or cultivation centers differently, I think, in allowing those in the employment. So for those two, I guess, categories, would they involve sales, or is that just cultivating and growing?
So they can allow sales. The default isn't necessarily that it allows it, but the state does allow basically what we call co-location licenses, where you can be both a grower and a dispensary, provided the municipality allows it. So it's if you recall, we allowed growers previously, but because we didn't allow dispensaries, it was limited there. So I guess the answer is it doesn't necessarily, having a grower doesn't necessarily mean it will be a dispensary, but it could under the state. The state has written their statute if we allow it.
So if we had a grower who also wanted to be a dispenser as part of that, would we allow that as proposed in the, again, I think it's the employment district?
Right, in the LI or the GI, how it's drafted currently is a craft grower could choose to be a dispenser. But if the Plan Commission doesn't want to allow that use there, it could just prohibit it. That is one option you have as well.
Great. And Joan, I think we're getting a little background from your microphone.
You know what it is? It's a plane's flying over. Little aircraft from the airport, they practice at night. So you want me to mute myself?
It might be helpful because it is coming through. So, and then just obviously unmute when you're ready to talk. Anyone else before we open it up?
I had one question for Drew. Maybe I misheard when you were talking about, I think it was, let me see what, oh, the police chief's report, I think. At one point, I thought you said that they were going to allow online ordering from a business or Yeah, from a business, and they would deliver to that business. And then later I saw that there was, on the points that you were talking about in regulation, that they don't allow delivery. Is
Okay.
that, yeah,
Yeah, I can clarify that.
thank you.
So what the chief, as I mentioned, he had spoken to some dispensary representatives and to some municipalities that have experienced a dispensary within their community. What he had observed in the memo, and I probably just didn't communicate that clearly, was that some of the one of the dispensaries that he had spoken with, they were offering, basically you could reserve your order online, choose the products you wanted to purchase, and then you would set an appointment window with the dispensary, and then you would basically have, I don't know if it was a 15-minute window, half-hour window, but there was a set time where you would go in and complete your purchase. So you still have to physically go to the dispensary, show your ID, and go through the whole sales process. I don't think they take the payment online either. I think you have to pay physically when you pick up the order. So they are, the chief's memo wasn't about online delivery or Amazon Prime or anything like that. It would just be going in and purchasing, or basically reserving online, setting a window when you were going to pick it up, and go in and complete your purchase.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So we're not going to have Bud Hub or anything like that, kind of like Grubhub, but anyway, sorry.
Hey, Drew, at the end of the police chief's report, it says staff recommendations. That's the police staff recommendations, not the city's, your recommendations, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And I think generally they're in line. I think the chief expressed a preference more for commercial than industrial, if I can summarize it. But yeah, it's the police staff's recommendation.
Okay.
This is Sarah. Basically, the map shows the areas with buffers as to where these dispensaries could be. This dispensary, I should say. So along Randall Road, really?
So the current draft would propose, and again, it would be a conditional use. It's not automatically by right. They would have to come before the planning commission and city council for any location in town. But the current draft and that map would be the general commercial district, and then the LI and GI district when co-located with a processor or grower. Or I should say, excuse me, a grower or a cultivation center. So yeah, the current draft would allow it on Randall Road if either the 500-foot or the 1,000-foot setback from those uses was adopted.
So the dispensary, technically, you're saying that it can't be in the LI unless it's with a grower? It can't be a standalone?
That's how it's written, or that's how we wrote the current ordinance, or the proposed version that's in the staff report. If the plan commission feels that you do not want to recommend it in the LI or GI district, that certainly can be a recommendation that comes out of the plan commission if that's the consensus to the commission. So you could choose just to say in the GI and LI, or LI and GI, we only would allow a grower and not a dispensary. Or you could also say you want a standalone dispensary in just the LI and GI district. That's another choice the commission considered too.
Thank you.
One more question, Drew. I'm sorry. This is Sue Peterson. Are our neighbors or the ones that you have looked into as to their usages, are they also based on conditional use, or is that something that we're just going to be, you have proposed?
From the communities that I looked into, I did not see any municipality that did not require a conditional use. So that's pretty standard across, at least within our area. so far.
One more question I had. Earlier this year, I think it was City Council had wanted kind of an idea of where requirements where this stuff would go. And as I remember it, it was kind of based on setbacks and things like that, limited to that kind of northeast corner of town. So, and now I see obviously that we've got some along Randall Road. Is that Randall Road opened up because of the districts were included or the setbacks?
So,
or were we just incorrect previously?
So the changes, or what that map you had looked at previously, and I can probably pull it up in a couple of minutes, but that was for when we were considering growers, processors, infusers, and transportation organizations. So that's what we added to our code last year or earlier in this year. That seems like a long time ago with this year, but that was, I think, around May or June of this year. And that was based on the city council was looking to add those uses. There was still the discussion about dispensaries, and that what the ultimate decision was to put it to the referendum. But that conversation, because it was more about the production type uses, we didn't propose allowing those uses in or any other district other than the LI and GI. So that's why, and with the buffers that we had before, that really limited it to that northeast quadrant where the industrial park is. And I think similarly might have allowed a small area with Fox Valley Business Park shown now on this map. So that was that set of uses. Now this larger this new conversation we're having being about recreational cannabis, which we didn't do anything with before. Since we're proposing in general commercial, we're showing Randall Road as being an option now. But how the code is written, that grower or cultivation center still is only limited to the GI district or the LI district. So that's up here. The only thing with the current draft that could go on Randall Road is just a standalone recreational dispensary. And I think we allow medical there too.
Anyone else? Anyone in the audience? Can we open up to the public?
So just for information purposes, if somebody in the audience wishes to speak, they should, there's a raise your hand icon that shows up on your toolbar. So you can click that if you do wish to speak. On the agenda, there was an email option to email staff with comments to me, and I have not received any emails so far tonight, or since the agenda has been posted.
Okay. Probably give them maybe not a minute or two, but a little bit of time. How many attendees do we have in the audience?
I'm showing one attendee at the moment. Okay. And they've not indicated that they wish to speak.
Okay. Then in general, is this something that everyone feels comfortable? And we can go through it maybe item by item because there are a lot of different parts to it. And then perhaps we can do that. And by the time we're done, we can decide whether or not we're comfortable moving forward tonight or if there is more information. Does that sound okay to everyone? Okay. And
Yeah, Joseph's okay with that.
Great. Then kind of the first after the summary, we've got proposed districts. So any comments on what the staff has here, agreement, disagreement, as far as uses in those districts.
This is Lalonde, and I agree with the staff recommendations on the district.
Okay, great. Anyone else?
Peterson, I would agree with Tom, who agrees with the staff. Yes, I think the districts are acceptable.
This is
Okay.
Joseph, and I agree with them too.
This is Harms, and I just want it in the northeast quadrant.
Got it, Amy? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I looked at the zoning map and I kind of agree it doesn't belong in the CC or the NC. I mean, just looking at those areas, I wouldn't think. So I agree to also.
With staff?
Yeah.
And my thought, and I might be a dinosaur on this, I really would rather not have dispensaries right along Randall Road. However, logically for a business, I think that if we're not doing anything downtown, that's where it would go. So as far as the districts, reluctantly, I would agree with staff as well.
Do we know in Geneva and St. Charles, do they have any that chosen to go along Randall Road? I think I saw one in downtown St. Charles. So are they allowing it in downtown there?
No, St. Charles has CBD facilities.
Okay.
The dispensary that they have, I believe, is on the east side of the industrial park because that was a medical dispensary. And then they added the, I think they were adding the recreational to that.
Yeah, okay.
The districts that St. Charles indicated was the community business and regional business district. So I can pull up a map to see kind of where that would be. And as Scott mentioned, I think medical location that I'm not sure what district that is in, but it's probably more industrial, but it was allowed there.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Any other comments before the districts, before we move on to the parking?
Yeah, this is Joseph talking. When you said you wouldn't like to see the dispensaries along Randall Road, we don't have to have more than one out there.
Correct. And I use the plural. Singular would be my same opinion for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like every business out there has to become a dispensary.
No, but isn't that also, Tom, isn't that also based on, it would be a conditional use and we'd have to agree with that?
Yeah, it's my understanding that any of these would be a conditional use, yes.
So we could not allow it on that, right?
Well, I think we would have to be objective, and if we've got a corridor along Randall Road that we're contemplating right now, it would not seem right if we later decided we're not going to allow anything along Randall Road. I think if we don't want it on Randall Road, as Drew had mentioned, I think there were ways to modify this so that it would, as Sarah mentioned, the only spot would be the northeast part of town.
Okay.
That's
I know the
just my
state,
opinion.
this is Lalonde. I know the state has a minimum separation of 1,500 feet, lineal feet. Is that correct, Drew?
Yes. So, and I believe that applies outside the city boundaries. So if there's one 1,500 or 1,400 feet away in Geneva, the dispensary here would have to be 1,500 feet from that location.
But would that be that would hold boundaries, correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I just said that would hold true within the city boundaries. So
Right.
taking Randall Road, if you run 1,500 lineal feet, you'd be lucky you get 2 in there regardless. That's my guess. I mean, it's not that big an area where it's even would be allowed.
I'm measuring it right now just to get a sense.
With regards to St. Charles, just so you know, those two districts that are cited, that is pretty much all of Randall Road, more or less. Route 38, which is in St. Charles, and then North Avenue / Main Street, east and west of the downtown area. It's primarily where those districts are.
Tom, can I make a statement? I think if you're interested in having a limitation in a given area, it should not be done solely through the conditional use. We should have some stated zoning separation or some stated zoning limit, whether it be per the district, the zoning district, or it would probably have to be for the zoning district.
Agreed.
But we should have a limit, but we should not limit the number solely through a conditional use.
Yeah, that could get messy.
Yep. If we're going to allow it there, we should allow it there. And Drew, if I'm
Right.
looking, it's probably 1,500 feet for most of that area.
So just to give you a point of reference, I just did a measurement from the south end of the Fabian Randall intersection, 1,500 feet. That takes you to basically Denny's or the south end of the IMAX theater. So you know, 1,500 feet applied a couple times probably would be 2 or 3. You know, in theory, you know, actually applying the measurements from the property lines would reduce it a little bit too. So because it would be from property line to property line, not door to door.
If the theater's not being used now, it could be put there.
And to be clear on my end, I was stating kind of my personal preference on this, but that I was okay with what staff had proposed. The city came in and I don't know if it was 2-1, but the vote was clear that the city wanted this, and Randall Road seems like the most logical place. So I don't have to be happy about it, but I'm not against what staff's proposing. Okay, great. Anything else on the districts?
And just to get a clarification, or I guess Jake, this might be the next question you're going into, but with the LI and GI districts, like would the standalone use be okay, or would you only like to see it co-located?
In those districts, where are they on the map?
I'll pull up our zoning map just so you can have a better sense with that. Oops. But essentially, the LI and GI, for the most part, are the northeast quadrant. The industrial park, there are a couple of areas, and I'll pull that up, that are closer, but those might be, if you subject the or use the buffers or some form of buffers, many of those areas get eliminated. But let's pull that up right here. So the light gray is light industrial. The dark gray is the general industrial. The South River Street corridor is, for the most part, light industrial with 1 or 2 general industrial spots. The Fox Valley Industrial Park is located here, as well as the former Ball Manufacturing. It's the SD Wheel Company now here. There is some industrial along Wilson and Main Street, but the proposed buffers would eliminate much of that area. And the existing buffers for processors too, or production facilities too.
And I get to make it easy for me, cultivators and growers, let's put it this way, along Randall Road, it would only be not the distributor, the retail sale, I guess we would call it.
Randall would only allow, or the general commercial district would only allow retail dispensaries, so sales. Production, like growing, what we call the craft grower or the cultivation centers, are limited to the industrial, the GI and LI districts.
Which would be that northeast and then that little area kind of to the south.
Right, and the LI, those uses are also subject to, I believe it's a 250-foot setback from residential. It might be 500, but let me double check.
And were you asking, this is Sue, you were asking if they should be standalone, which we would want, standalone or co, with the growers or the production? Is that what you had asked?
Yes.
Oh, got it.
I would think the co, what would I say, together would be preferable to a standalone, each one being a standalone.
Yeah, and just to go back to the cannabis business establishments in the industrial park, or, the grower, cultivation center, processor, those are required to be at least 500 feet from residential. So those uses would have an additional setback beyond what just a recreational dispensary would allow as written currently.
But if they were together as co, then which setback would they have to abide by?
They would abide by both, so the stricter would apply. So if it's a industrial location, would have to meet the current setbacks for 500 feet from schools, playgrounds, rec centers, childcare centers, public park, library, and arcade uses. And then additionally, a processor or a grower or processor has to be 500 feet from residential. So it would have that in addition to those other ones.
So that prevents anyone from opening on Randall Road, correct? If we're going to mix it with the grower.
So that 500-foot residential, as it's drafted right now, is only for the grower. A freestanding recreation, how it's drafted right now, a freestanding recreational cannabis dispensary in the general commercial district would not be subject to that setback, unless the Plan Commission requires that. And I think we would probably want to have a new map for you to look at that, because the current map doesn't include that particular setback.
I think we should just go with
Again,
LI or GI. Because it doesn't necessarily follow that a dispensary and a grower would be the same entity. They could be separate people, separate companies.
They could be, yes.
But so I would want GI and LI for both. They don't necessarily have to be next to each other or anything, but I would just rather have them there.
Can you put up the blue map again?
Let me know if we need to zoom in anywhere particular.
Right, so again, as I'm looking at this, what we're saying as proposed is along Randall Road, only thing you can have in there is one of the stores where they're just selling. Growers, craft, all of that are basically in that northeast portion and then the far south. I think certainly through this and setbacks and all, if we change some of this, you'd be able to eliminate everything along Randall Road or most of it, but I don't know that again, personal belief aside, I don't know that that's necessarily the right thing to do. And it appears that the other municipalities are kind of allowing this as well.
I would say, yeah, generally, if you introduced a residential setback or residential buffer, you would have a lot of limitations on Randall Road versus because basically for a number of properties, commercial properties back up to residential in some form, whether multifamily or single family. But there would still be some properties, probably just at the corner properties would probably be the only ones that would allow it if you had a 250 foot or 500 foot buffer from residential.
This is Joseph asking, is there any limitations as far as the hospital goes? The hospital, is on, it's in Geneva. That's right. Never mind.
There wouldn't be anything in the current draft. A hospital would not be a setback, and the state requirements for advertising don't single out hospitals separately.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking about medical offices too, but I don't think there are any. Was it? Maybe there's a chiropractor.
Advocate off of Fabian.
That property is zoned community commercial, so we're not proposing to have that district be eligible.
So to get a feel, I don't know if we want to just kind of go through as far as the retail along Randall. If people, I suppose, enough people are against that, then we'd want to talk about changing some of the setbacks or things like that, or the districts. If enough people are not against that, then I think we can go ahead and proceed. So make sure I don't miss anyone here. So Tom Lalonde, your thoughts on commercial base use along Randall Road, yes or no?
First of all, I voted against it, so I don't want them in our community, but that's a personal opinion. It seems like, if we restricted anything, you would have to probably remove the entire corridor from it, which probably is not logical. So I say, based on the fact that many of those properties do abut residential districts, that any kind of setbacks there would literally eliminate 90% of those properties. It really doesn't make sense to me to say, okay, you can have it, but you can only have it in the corner up there at Fabian and Randall.
Got it.
So
retail.
I'm not opposed to it. I guess I'd like to limit it to 1 and 2 max. On how we do that, I'm not sure, but maybe we write that into the, the district code.
And I think that is one of the things open, is how many we can suggest we think should be allowed.
Right.
Yeah, the council, when they kind of were providing some direction, they voted on several different things, and that was one of the things that they didn't want to provide limitations. That's not to say that you can't do that. The only thing is the state does have a limitation with the 1,500 foot setback. So, if you get 1 on Randall Road, you might be able to get 2 maybe, but that's probably the max. But if you guys are looking to implement a total number, that's something you can do. Just beware the council did not want to impose a specific limitation on them.
Got it. Sarah, your thoughts, retail on Randall?
Nope.
Thank you for making that.
In the whole town.
Sue Peterson?
Yeah, I think as you said, I wish we could limit it to, and from what Scott just said, apparently it's almost self-limiting. if it's just one and possibly two. And as you said, also to start with, the people have voted in the referendum that they wanted it. And I think it is kind of assumed that it would be in retail areas. Of course, we haven't even talked about the parking issue and what's allowed for parking in some of those areas. I'm just referring to what we see in North Aurora happening, and the one that's right on the main road, and what a horrible situation that is as far as accessing it. But at this point, I guess I would have to go ahead and say yes for Randall.
Got it. Joan?
First of all, we're on Randall Road. I mean, where is the North Aurora one? Sue?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's not on Randall, it's on Route 31, and it's right in North Aurora, right across from, oh, I forget what used to be a college or something like that. But in the old furniture building, isn't it?
It's close to their police department,
It's
Close to the new
on
police
the
department?
across the
It's on
street
the
from
east side of 31. It's right by the Veterans. The Veterans Center is in there as well. That's
Right, you're right.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I also voted against it. So I would be very pleased not to have it at all. But I know that the vote was for it. But I would think there's, having it on Randall Road, it's not okay with me, but I can see it being there. But I wondered about other businesses wanting to go into an area where there is cannabis available. The other people wanting to go in, say if somebody has a business, an open shop or a shop for rent there, and nobody wants it because of its location. I wonder about that. So that's it. Kind of doesn't answer your question, does it?
You're okay with retail along Randall or no?
Well, I guess so, because it could limit the amount of dispensary.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then Amy?
It is sales of something. If you look at all the other communities, it is a commercial sale of an item, even though it's not something that I would purchase myself. So, being on Randall Road, I would think if you're a property owner, you're going to have to think twice. Do you want to rent to them or not? Because how it affects other uses. I mean, that's a property issue. I don't know that we can really mandate, that. Unfortunately.
And as I stated, I think the vote was that 2-1 to allow this, and Randall Road is the logical place. So for what we're doing, I'm certainly okay with Randall Road. So I believe that was 5-1 as far as commission being okay with the draft as it is with the commercial along Randall. So
well, not only are we they have to be 1,500 feet away from each other. If we put in buffers from residential or schools or religious institutions, for example, that's gonna, I would assume, affect a lot of those properties, especially with the ones with residential right behind them.
Couldn't we put the same buffers in for the growers as it is for the dispensary?
So ultimately, what the council implemented, ultimately what the council recommended was just a 500-foot setback from residential for the growers. The other ones that were discussed by the Plan Commission, they ultimately did not adopt. With what we, just to clarify or make sure everybody's on the same page here, the properties in blue would be 500 feet away from that list of uses in 4.5. So it does apply those. It doesn't apply anything from residential. So if you want to see something with a residential buffer, we'd have to prepare a new map and show you what that would result in if that's what you, if the consensus of the commission is that you want to see what that buffer does. We could prepare something like that.
I guess I would, 500 feet for a grower, to me, we might consider a different buffer for a place where people are coming on a regular basis. You're having customers come there. Instead of a small amount of people that are just growing it, you're going to have a lot more traffic and usage at a retail place.
And that was one thing in the police chief's report. He did note that these are really destination-oriented businesses.
Yeah.
That basically the traffic that's going there knows where it is and is choosing to go there.
I guess, would it be helpful, would we want to take more time and get a map that would show a 250 foot setback from residential for retail, or 500 or both, or, it would still be there along Randall. So either it's going to be eliminated altogether if you do too big of a buffer or a large enough buffer, or it's going to be allowed somewhere on Randall. So I don't know if a map showing these other setbacks would be helpful or not.
And I'm just moving to the 1,000 feet from those listed uses, just because that might give you, it's not an exact representation, but there's a park along behind Jewel, essentially, for example. So if you apply 1,000 feet there, that eliminated, and it butts Jewel, I believe it's right here. I don't know if you can see where my mouse is here.
Yeah, it does. That's Jewel.
Okay, but so that 1,000 foot buffer, eliminates, a pretty good run that you could probably kind of apply. If you applied a 250 foot or 500 foot here, you probably would get a similar result from the residential. It's probably easier just to show you or generate a new map and show you. But, with what I have right in front of me, this is what I got. So.
And with that 1,000, I think you'd be hard pressed to get two of them on there in 1,500 within farther than 1,500 feet away. If you go far north, west, and southeast, maybe. So
I'm going to make my point again. In case, instead of doing all that, let's just have it in the LI and the GI.
well, I think what the point of the whole exercise of getting the opinion previously was to see whether we were going to try, because that would, I think, effectively eliminate it from Randall Road. And I think the consensus was that we don't really feel we should separate or eliminate Randall Road. So,
But you're
I
also
don't know.
going to find ways to eliminate Randall Road by putting buffers in there. So that's my point. It's like, well, let's just have it there instead.
Well, we can go through the vote or the question again, but unless people have changed their answers, I think the consensus again was that the Plan Commission was not going to be against having these on along Randall Road. If I'm mistaken, and Sarah, I know you wanted to keep it in that northeast quadrant, but if anyone else, if I'm mistaken, let me know.
I guess I don't have a problem with it being in a commercial area, but when you're looking at the buffers and if you include residential, I'd really like to see if that just tosses that all out then. If you have a buffer to residential, not just parks and schools.
Got it. So a residential buffer, 250 feet, 500 feet, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd like to see what, does that indeed make that not a good location, not based on its zoning, but based on what it's next to.
Got it. And Drew, I think
Just-
that's
just
something
from
that you would be.
From eyeballing it, I mean, you would, yeah, just from eyeballing it, you would probably cut out most of Randall Road because most of those properties
Yeah.
abut residential. So, I mean, you know, you'd probably put it at Portillo's and, you know, maybe the Walmart. But then you're counting residential on all sides, including the Geneva side.
Right.
We can go through Portillo's and order our pot at the same time we get our meal.
Correct, yes. That's not oregano on my burger.
But there's a big old empty Sam's Club there too. I mean, that's,
Right, but that abuts residential.
okay.
I am definitely in support of a residential buffer, and I would say 500 feet minimum for me.
Okay,
I agree. This is Joan Joseph. I agree with that, at least 500 feet. I mean, I see how close the houses are. Oh,
Yeah,
behind,
right on the back of the properties.
pardon me?
I said the residential is right on the back of those properties on both sides of Randall.
Right, exactly, right. And I think the people will come to the plan commission meetings or whatever and really object to that. And I wouldn't blame them. I'd be objecting to it too. So 500 feet at least.
okay. So what, am I correct in this, that it would be helpful to get a couple new maps showing a residential setback? And then we would be able to see, and at 500 feet, 250 feet, I don't know if we want a couple of them. I don't think anyone's proposing to go more than 500. 250
Tom?
feet isn't a lot, but,
Tom, if we're going, we certainly can do additional maps with a residential buffer, but we have a list of, I don't know, 3, 4 things that why we need a buffer from residential. I mean, if we're going to propose this, we have to have a reason for that. And something like general activity on a property may not be the best because, like all businesses, all new businesses, there's an initial period of interest and curiosity, and then it kind of wanes. We're seeing that with a lot of dispensaries, or at least I'm reading a lot about dispensaries. On the other hand, a lot of things I've read about retail analysis is one of the best things that you just can't buy to benefit all retail is foot traffic. And the dispensary, we have been told, or the experience is, does bring in a lot of foot traffic, at least at the initial period. Maybe it will continue. I think they haven't been around long enough to make that determination. But anything that brings in foot traffic is good for retail. And on Randall Road, there is a little bit of a visibility issue to the storefronts as one is driving, biking, or walking. If anybody still walks on Randall Road, there's a little bit of a visibility issue. So something that will actually bring more customers into the site. Those customers can then see the other businesses that are in the area. It's just some things to think about in keeping what we hope would be a foot traffic generator, keeping something like that out of Randall Road. Maybe just keep that in mind. But we really would like to have some reasons for the residential buffer.
sure. Any of the
This
commissioners want to chime in?
This is Lalonde. We obviously already have limitations defined for a number of properties. You know, would be the difference between a residential property and a public library or a game arcade or a recreation center. I mean, I see it as the same thing. I don't think you necessarily want that readily available to residences where you could have young children in relative proximity to the facility.
Mhm.
Randall's a driving corridor. 99.9% of the people that use the commercial district there drive. They don't walk. I don't think it's realistic to think that you're going to generate foot traffic that's going to, increase retail sales appreciably.
No, but I do think you'll have people driving into that area, and they're going to be buying hopefully stuff along that Randall corridor. But sure, we've got the Habitat for Humanity homes that are going in
Mhm.
there at Spuler and all. And I think that would be the fear. You've got a young family with kids, and that people would just be fundamentally, I guess, would fundamentally rather have not have a dispensary right next to them.
Right. Mhm.
I don't know if there's other reasons that we would have to state.
Well, you said there's a 500-foot buffer for the growers. What's the reasoning behind that? I mean, I wasn't on the plan commission, and I don't know if that's something that we recommended or if city council just stated that.
I can probably answer that. I think the consensus at the time was that both the growth and production uses, because they're industrial, there could be odor issues, there could be noise issues. Those, so those were some of the reasons to move them away from the residential that might otherwise be nearby. So I think that was the motivation for that particular buffer.
This is Sue Peterson again. How about, let's see, aren't there delivery lanes behind all of the businesses there on Randall Road? Would that be the same? Would a dispensary have big trucks delivering and so forth?
I don't know that, well, I mean, they would be receiving deliveries of product.
Yeah.
Don't know. Yeah, I don't know if they, with the original adoption of medical, like the state required that you have a space you pull into, essentially. I don't know if the state requires that still for recreational, but you would have delivery of products. There's going to be probably might be non-cannabis related products that get delivered more simply by, UPS truck or what have you. But you would probably, the other thing the chief mentioned was pickup of money. That's another item that comes probably more frequently here than other businesses. So those are probably some of the activities you would have in a rear loading area of a building, or a building that has this use.
Yeah. Okay. In those cases, of course, as I do drive that lane once in a while to avoid the traffic on Randall, but there are all high fences between the businesses and the residential behind them. So I don't know if that would play into this or not, as far as buffering.
And would this business have a heavier delivery load than other businesses? Like I said, I'm not going to be a purchaser here, so it's very, very hard to compare that to groceries or Best Buy or something like that. I just don't want us to enforce something that isn't being enforced equally and that coming back.
Yeah, so for instance,
I would be surprised if any of these dispensaries have delivery activity like vehicles and other things that would generate more activity than a well-performing retail establishment. And it's likely, since they don't really sell large durable goods, delivery would be by smaller vehicles than Walmart or a furniture store.
In the area I'm really looking at where a setback kind of certainly would potentially make sense for residential is, and I forget the name of the street that's just west of Spuler, where Taco Bell and all is, where it kind of juts out where,
Independence.
yeah, thank you. But the area in purple there, that's vacant. And with the zoning there, could a dispensary go into that spot? And then immediately, kind of right next door, again, we've got these residential Habitat for Humanity homes. So there are some areas. Most of this, as Sue mentioned, you've got a big fence. You're not really going to see it as it abuts residential. I don't know.
Right, so the property you're referring to in the Hughes color, I guess. So there's the vacant property to the south on Independence, the 132 here. There's also the freestanding retail that's was part of the original bank development along Wilson Street. That property, which has there's the chiropractor, there's an insurance agent, and there's an orthodontist. That property is community commercial, as is the vacant property. So the current text would not allow a dispensary at either of those locations. Now, the vacant bank is zoned general commercial at the hard corner, or at the corner of Randall and Wilson. So that that general commercial could allow it if they're provided the setbacks are met.
So we've got more of this to go through. So if we're going to have other things we want question from staff, we should go through the rest of this so we can tell them everything. Is the consensus that we would like to see a drawing, a map with some sort of setback from residential?
Yes,
Yes.
this is Joseph. I would like to see that.
So we've got Joseph, yes. Peterson, yes. Amy?
Yep.
Sarah, I think the answer is yes.
Yes.
Tom?
Yes, I would say 500 for me.
And
I don't,
500 to me seems like a lot because it's going to eliminate so much of this. So maybe, Drew, I don't know if we could do like a 250 and a 500.
We could do like a 250 and 500. After we do that, if we think as a staff there maybe you might be helpful to see some other numbers, we could probably generate those too.
Absolutely, that'd be great. Okay, so anything more on this? We'll have more information coming. But anything more on this before we move on to the next point, parking?
Not from Joseph.
Okay, great. Then we've got the staff recommendation on parking. Any comments, anyone on that?
I agree with staff.
I agree with staff. I mean, I think when any new place opens up, whether that's a popular store, you're always going to have maybe problems in the beginning, but I would say in the long run, I agree with staff.
Yep, and I would agree as well. And even the North Aurora facility, it's changed drastically over the last 6, 8, 9 months. And I think for the retail stuff, again, that chances are it's going to be along Randall Road, and most of these sites have plenty of parking, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. Anyone have any objection to what staff's proposing as far as parking?
No.
No.
Okay, great. Then the next bullet point I have on here is experience of the applicant. Did we want to include anything on that? Because I think staff just kind of raised that as a possible.
I like that they have included experience. Looking it over, I thought 1 year is even enough, but I'd like to see someone move in that has had some initial experience before.
Okay. Any other comments, yes or no?
I'd say yes, and I think 1 year is reasonable.
I agree. Mhm.
Okay, so perhaps 1 year experience, is that what I was hearing?
Mm,
Okay. Hours of operation. I think staff was recommending between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m.
yeah, Joseph agrees with that.
So does Sarah.
I agree.
Yep,
Right, no one opposed to
agree.
the 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
no,
And then on the number, it sounds like the committee of the whole didn't want us to even weigh in on the number here.
Their
I would say
direction,
that they, were looking at just, following the state statute requirements, which is the 1,500 feet apart from each other. That's not to say that you can't make a recommendation on it, but that was just kind of their consensus.
I would recommend 1.
Okay.
I mean, Geneva only has 1.
I was
It's about the same size as Geneva. I don't think it would be that, it's not like a liquor store where, you have all these different brands and prices and things like that. It's pretty straightforward, and if that's the only place you can go, fine.
And that northeast quadrant can have retail, certainly, as well.
as currently, or the current draft would allow them as a co-location.
Yep.
Generally, we don't allow retail in the LI or GI. So I think that was kind of a consideration in terms of, but we do allow retail, like if you make a product, you can have a small retail space to sell it. So kind of in a similar vein, that's where we were thinking that maybe a grower, especially the craft grower, may want to have the ability to sell on premise. But as a general rule, as it's drafted right now, freestanding retail cannabis dispensary would not be allowed. It would have to be with a grower business.
I was going to say 2. Sorry, I was going to say 2 max, but I was wondering, can we limit it to 1 per district? Does that make any sense?
I can propose whatever limits you
Right,
want. I mean, if you want to say that 1 in a GC district and 1 in an LI district, I mean, St. Charles limited theirs to 1 on each side of the river, so you can impose whatever
Right.
limitation.
I would,
Go ahead, sir.
with a grower, we would allow it with a grower. And then I guess maybe 1 more retail. I guess I'm changing my mind.
And Drew, the other thing that might be helpful when we're doing these maps, if we can get distances, because with some of these setbacks, or even as it currently is, that might reveal that, well, the absolute max you can get is 2 along Randall. That northeast quadrant, you could get a whole lot, but I don't really see them popping up all over there.
So like perhaps like have a buffer or show what the buffer actually is, the 200, 500, so you can get a sense of that distance, or you're looking for
So once
just an example.
What's
So,
the
for
distance
instance-
between Fabian and Main Street? I guess that might give some context.
Exactly.
Maybe could you just measure that out right now?
I can measure it right now. Yeah. So 1.23 miles, so that would be about 7,000-ish feet. I can do the number real quick.
So with that, spacing wise, you could get 4 of them along Randall Road.
Ooh,
Sounds like it.
no, that's excessive. I
Yeah.
tend to agree. I tend to agree with St. Charles, which is rare. I like one on each side of the river.
Yeah, they're kind of the same thing I was thinking. So
Mhm. Yeah,
it's kind of what it boils down
About
to.
6,500
We have to-
feet. 6,500 feet between Main Street and Fabian.
How many feet between?
6,500, 6,500.
65, huh? Yeah, I think
So that says 4.
2.
You know, put one
I
at each
agree
end
with
and
the
2 in
2.
the middle.
One on each side of the river.
So if they were perfectly spaced, that would be 4 total, but we're looking at property lines and things like that too, so.
Yeah.
And
Certainly
depth.
3.
Yeah, my thought would almost be 2 retail, 1 combo or whatever we're calling it, which would limit it to 2. And you wouldn't even have to talk about which side of the river.
That's true. Mhm.
So you're
Two
saying
is
one
excessive.
retail, one co.
Pardon?
You're saying one retail and one, as they said, co.
Got it. And I'd be okay with 2 retail and 1 co. If we were going to suggest something. So I don't know, again, Tom, Amy, Joan.
Oh, Joan thinks that a total of 2 is more than enough. Sorry, Joan.
Yeah, I like the 1 on each side of the river max.
Because that would mean that one would have to be co, correct?
Right, yeah, there's,
Is there no general commercial on the east side?
so the locations that would be general commercial are in front of Prairie Commons. That's one area, that 15 acres at the corner of Wind Energy and Kirk. Also, the Aldi corner at the southeast corner of Fabian and Kirk is zoned general commercial. So that in theory, if it ever developed, could be a location. If it was developed for general commercial, could be a location as well.
As is the southwest corner.
Southwest was rezoned for that industrial use.
That one's the temporary rezoning.
Oh, that's
So-
right. Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right.
So
It
those
does automatically go back.
yes. Okay. So yeah, in 2 years, is that correct?
2 years, correct. Mhm.
2 years from earlier this year.
So those are the main general commercial locations on the east side of town.
Okay. I wouldn't be against proposing 1 on each side of town. Sue, your thoughts?
Well, I'm just thinking if the one on the east side is in that industrial area, along with the growers, if we did it with the co, I'm thinking of those streets there that are filled with semi trucks and all of the traffic that industry promotes, and how difficult it might be for anyone, let's say on the east side, any client or customer, to access all that. I don't know. And when you just now mentioned the southeast, now that's quite far down the way. So I don't know. I don't think the city council will necessarily agree with us with just 1 on each side of the river, but then of course we're only recommending. So
Right. Mhm.
yeah, let's wait and see. Let's
Yeah,
propose.
The good part of the down by Fabian and Kirk is that there is very little residential right at that corner.
Yep. And there's certainly plenty of traffic on Kirk, but.
That's right. Yeah. Mhm. There'd be no problem with that. Mhm.
Okay. Anyone, because again, what I'm kind of hearing, the consensus is one on each side of town.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Then anything else on that before, and we can take a look, were there comments or thoughts on the actual changes on the zoning code? And the only thing I had thought from looking through this, I didn't see in here church listed along with park and library and school and all of that. I don't think it really affects any of this. But it would be my opinion that we might add church to that list as well.
Right.
Right. Yeah, church is not currently one of the buffered uses within that location item. But that is something, if the commission would like to see that or add that, we can certainly put that information together. So I'll simply say it's generally because of childcare, I think we do get a couple of the churches, but not necessarily all the churches.
Again, I think practically it doesn't really affect any of this. I think you've got the church there on Main Street that's far enough away.
It would probably have a greater effect if we allowed it in the downtown districts. The proximity to churches, if it was allowed there, would probably have a greater effect than Randall Road or the industrial park.
Okay, then I think circling back to the beginning on this, as far as the districts, staff, Drew, you're going to get us some maps with some residential setbacks for the retail along Randall Road. Parking, we were good with what staff had. I think experience, we were supporting someone with perhaps a year's experience in the industry. Hours of operation, as staff proposed, 9 to 9 was okay. And then, at least for now, I think the consensus is one on each side of town. But obviously, these other issues we can confirm if we'll have time to think about it. But I think what I'm getting is that we would want to continue to a future date to get the maps and then take action at that time.
Can I ask you a couple questions? At the bottom, when you're comparing Aurora, Elburn, Geneva, St. Charles, Warrenville, on-site consumption is prohibited in Aurora, Elburn, St. Charles, and Warrenville. Do the other communities allow on-site consumption? I didn't think that the state even allowed that.
So the state, how the state act is written, it could allow it. I think at practice where you're seeing, the only time I've seen it allowed so far, or proposed to be allowed, was DeKalb, and that's, I think, because students can't consume on campus. It's state-owned property. That's just my guess. But in terms of that example document, it was just, I didn't find a line within the zoning code that expressly prohibited it. They may have a language in other sections of code that addresses it. So it doesn't necessarily mean it allows it. It's just I didn't locate any specific language for that consumption.
And there were a couple other kind of different requirements. One is in Aurora, no display of cannabis visible outside the store. And the other one is Warrenville, I guess they're posting no loitering signs.
Yeah, they had language that was basically specifically in the code that said you could not loiter adjacent to the property. I don't know, in effect, from a zoning standpoint, why it would be in the zoning code,
yeah,
but that it was there. We do have a signage requirement within 4.5. So we do have similar language to Aurora.
Okay.
Okay, great. Anything else?
Is that something that we can require that they cannot consume on the premises?
Yes, we can. And I think that was the consensus of the council, if I remember correctly. I think they weren't really inclined to do that. And I know police chief was definitely against on-site consumption.
Okay.
Tom,
Yes,
do we need then a motion to continue the public hearing?
right.
I think we should
And
first
I-
see if anybody in the audience wants to speak. I don't know if there is, but I should extend that since we are in a public hearing.
yes, if anyone in the audience would like to speak, I think Drew had mentioned how to raise your hand. So we'll give them a minute. Drew, anyone? Are you there, Drew? There you are.
There.
So anyone in the audience raise their hand?
Looks
We
like
probably had
Drew-
the same
looks like
problem I did.
Drew-
We're working remotely and some of our tags kick us out after a while. So I think that was probably what happened to him.
Got it.
Well,
Yes.
I'm still here. I don't see anybody raising their hand. This is Howard.
Okay, great.
I'm
Then
sorry.
procedurally, do we leave the public hearing open and continue?
I think that's probably prudent to do that, I guess, at this point, just because there may be other questions and comments people have, especially if you're gonna make changes to your recommendations at this point after we get additional information to you. It's probably best.
Sounds good. So we'll leave the public hearing open and then continue it. What date would we be looking at for that continuation?
I think that's the January 20th date, right, Drew?
January 20th would be the date that, or we would recommend extending it to.
So we won't have an earlier meeting in January. That one won't happen.
January 6th would be the first scheduled meeting of the year. We have no other items for that agenda, so we were going to recommend going to the 20th when we do have the other public hearing that would have been tonight on that agenda. Plus, it would give us time to get this together.
So I believe we need a motion to continue the public hearing to January 20th, 2021 Plan Commission meeting.
Moore will motion.
Second, Peterson.
Motion and a second, roll call.
Moore,
Aye.
Peterson,
Aye.
Jocelyn,
Aye.
Harms,
Yes.
Joseph,
Aye.
Joseph,
Aye.
and Lalonde.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
Okay, great. Then matters from the public. Didn't hear anything previously, but if any matters from the public, raise your hand, Drew, let us know.
I'm not seeing anybody at the moment raise their hand.
Okay, great. If that changes, let us know. Other business.
This is one item, the industrial building that we did design review for, I think in September or October. They did submit their permit for their construction.
Great. Then if there's no other business, need a motion to
Well,
adjourn.
wait, I have something for business, just out of the way. I just want to wish everybody Merry Christmas and a good new year and hopefully a better year. So we all can be together again on January 20th. Maybe not so much, but it would be nice. So Happy New Year too.
Yeah, Happy
Thank
New
you.
Year. And at my first
Thank you.
meeting as chair, thank you for everyone for not laughing at me. So I don't wait.
You did a great job.
But,
We muted ourselves when we did,
they're
so
gonna
don't worry.
be,
it's
they're gonna
fine.
be politicking for you soon, Tom. Don't worry.
You
But
did fine.
Great
anything
job for
else?
your first meeting. Congratulations.
Any other business? All right, then motion to adjourn. Anyone?
Also
Anyone?
moved.
Great. I think that was Joseph a second.
That was Joseph, right?
Okay.
Peterson, second.
You guys
Great.
want to hang around,
I don't know if we need a roll for this. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. All right. Thanks, guys.
huh? Okay,
Thanks.
All right.
thank you.
Good holiday.
Take care.